It's tough to grow up without a good perspective on marriage from your parents. And a lot of you were in the same boat as me that way. Those of you whose parents had good marriages, be grateful for that example. And I mean that in all seriously. The data show that children from broken marriages, they're less likely to marry. And when they do, they struggle more. And they're almost twice as likely to divorce. As a kid, I didn't know anybody who had a good marriage. At least I didn't know them well enough to be able to follow their example. I didn't know who had good marriages and who didn't. I didn't know people well enough for that, but I sure didn't at home or any of my immediate family members that I knew of. So I looked at TV couples, and I used to watch The Brady Bunch. Any of you remember that show? I used to watch that, and I would think, man, I wish I could have a family like that. That's really what I thought. I dreamed of that being my family. Well, thank God, after becoming a Christian, I was able to observe enough godly examples to at least know what I wanted. In fact, I wound up, when I was in college, I had a list. I wrote a list of things I was looking for, and I showed it to my pastor's wife, and she just said, Scott, you're overthinking it, and you're never going to find anybody that's got that stuff on that list. And then after I started dating Linda, my pastor's wife, she told me that she was wrong, that Linda was perfect, and so I was just sure, man, it's going to be great. And then we got married, and 6 months into it, I think we both had some unvoiced second thoughts. I'd always heard that marriage is finding your better half. It's like having a sleepover every night with your best friend. Marriage is like having a built-in roommate. And it's true, but I wish someone would have told me that the roommate never leaves. She eats all of my snacks and knows all of my buttons to push, and all the while me being the perfect husband. Well, let's face it, marriage is hard, and dating is confusing. But as I tell our young unmarried staff, that who you marry is the second most important decision of your life, and when you get married, it's permanent. So today we're going to look at what Proverbs says about two really big questions. The first one is, how do you choose wisely when you're dating? Because a lot of you are single here, and so how do you choose wisely? Secondly, once you're married, how do you keep making wise choices to stay happily married? It's going to be very practical, but before we get into this, I want to lay some foundational groundwork for dating and marriage. And as you know, this is a series through Proverbs, and there's so much about marriage and even dating and who you should be looking for. There's so much about this in the book of Proverbs, so we're going to find that this book is so practical. But this first foundational, I think we have to get this started off right, and that is having a desire for a healthy marriage is natural. And some people are going to tell you it's not, or, I single friends who are here, I've heard people tell you that if you want a spouse, you just need to stop caring. And once you don't have that desire anymore, then God will bring along the right person into your lap. And I know a lot of singles have also pretended to not care, partly because of that, or maybe they've gotten discouraged. And then they say things like, well, I don't want to get married anyway. Well, let's just end the charade. If you are single and you want to be married, that's not wrong. That's being human. Most people, even most people who pretend to not care, want to have someone to share their life with. In fact, from the start, when God created Adam, what did he say? He says, you shouldn't be alone. I didn't make you to be by yourself. And this is true. You give a group of guys some fireworks in an hour of free time, and man, oh man, you can see why God created women. Beautiful counterbalance. Marriage and family, in fact, it was the first institution that God established. The nuclear family is not just a part of life, it is the foundation. And when you take away the family or the desire for family, you don't lose something singular in society, you lose society. So God cares deeply about marriage, and that desire is ingrained in us. It's natural. However, the second foundational point is also very important. Only God can meet your deepest relational needs. Wanting to be married is not wrong. Needing to be married, though, is troublesome and will not go in your favor. Being desperate to find a mate is a sure way to either remain single or end up in a disastrous marriage. Wanting someone to spend your life with, that's something that is good. Needing someone to fulfill you or to complete you is not. In fact, it's idolatry. And if you think you need to be married to be happy, you will never have a happy marriage, because unhappy singles become unhappy marrieds. In fact, it winds up being two unhappy people than because the one will only make it worse for the other. And because what happens, they're looking for someone else to meet their deepest relational needs. And no other person can ever do that. And we do have needs. We have a need for love, a need for security and safety, a need for purpose, for serving, for encouragement. We are a bunch of needy people. And some of you might be thinking, I know, and that's why I married a good husband or why I married a godly wife. Well, here's the problem with that. Even a godly spouse is a bad Jesus. Our needs are not spouse-sized, they are God-sized. And when we look to our spouse to provide what only God can give, we crush them under the weight of our expectations. And that was my first year of marriage. I had expectations of what I thought I needed from Linda. She had expectations of what she thought she needed from me. And in doing so, we just sucked the life out of each other. Now, our marriage changed when we decided to give our needs to God and our love to each other. So let's dig through Proverbs and find wisdom for dating and marriage. Proverbs 12:4 says, a worthy wife is a crown for husband, but a disgraceful woman is like cancer in his bones. And remember now, this was written to young men. So the primary audience, of course, young men. That doesn't mean it's genderless, though. This is applied to both men and women. But these were for the young guys, the princes in his household that he was writing this to. But this is for both of us, both genders. Choose your spouse carefully. And so we're going to give some wise rules for dating. These would be practical rules to give for ourselves. And rule number 1 is date with your eyes wide open. It was Ben Franklin who wrote, keep your eyes wide open before marriage and half shut afterwards. That's really good advice. And when you're dating, you should become an even better Instagram stalker than you are now. You should figure out as much as you can about this person and how they handle themselves, especially in relationships. When I used to do premarital counseling, my goal was to get them to identify all the red flags. You know, what is it about this person that might be a warning sign, or about the relationship that you need to get worked through, all the warning signs, problems, potential problems that they can see each other, problems that they have to figure out before getting married, because if they don't, it'll likely destroy their marriage later. And so as you date or as you give advice to people who are dating, here's some red flags to look for. First one is this: different faiths. Oh, what am I doing here? I guess, there we go, different faiths. First red flag, different faiths. Statistically, the highest divorce rate are among couples who practice different faiths. You may not have known that, but it is true. And any good marriage counselor, they're going to say that because it's what they have seen. In fact, even those who may profess to be Christian but attend different churches, it's still in the same category. It's a big red flag. Mixed faith couples are 3 times more likely to get divorced because our faith is not a compartment of our life, it is our life. Your faith system, Christian or not, is the lens through which you see all of your time and money, your relationships, your attitudes flow from it, your habits. It's all defined by what you believe first. And this is true even for those who profess to be Christian, as I said. But if you're different denominations, being on the same page when it comes to life with God, the church you attend, it's a big deal, and maybe the biggest. Amos 3:3, the prophet says, can 2 people walk together without agreeing on the direction? Well, that's pretty good. You can't, of course, if you go in different directions. And that's what he's talking about here. Your faith system is the road you are walking. Priority number 1 in dating is to find someone who is walking the same road in the same direction. So next flag, different values. Because you may have the same faith, but come to different conclusions on what you value in life. You might value saving and financial peace, but this person values BMWs and credit cards. Got contradicting values. You want 6 kids. They'd rather just have a cat. You want to be in church every Sunday and serve, and they think once a month that's good enough. Or you want to discipline your children in a healthy way, but they want to damage their kids with gentle parenting, which, as you know, I believe damages kids, but that's a whole nother Proverbs message on discipline. But you have to figure out what's truly valuable to you and whether those 2 values between you and that person, whether or not those align. Next red flag, strained relationships. When you're dating, you put your best foot forward. I mean, it's natural. You're going to want to show your best self, and so you show the other person the best version of yourself. It's all understandable. But the best way to see how the person that you're dating handles relationships is to look at their other relationships, not how they're necessarily treating you. Of course, they're going to treat you when they're trying to impress you. They're going to treat you well. But what about their other relationships? If they don't have any long-term close friends, or if they've cut off their siblings, or if they blow up at their mom or dad when they get angry, do you think that they will magically handle conflict differently with you? You got to look for those. How do they handle their other relationships? How do they treat their friends? How do they treat their coworkers, their parents? Guys, how does she treat her dad? Girls, how does he treat his mom? Because that's more than likely how they're going to treat you someday. In fact, here's the biggest one. How do they treat people who annoy them? Because guess what? Married people here know exactly what I'm talking about. You're dating now, you can't imagine it. But someday you're going to be the biggest annoyance in their life. You will annoy that person. So how do they treat people now who annoy them? Because you're going to find out that's probably how they're going to treat you. How do they handle those annoyances? Another one, another red flag, it's ungodly character. Proverbs 31:10 says, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Now, just that first line, charm is deceitful. You know, how many you know that's true? Charm can be very deceitful. And I've talked to a lot of girls who say, oh, but he's so cute. He's so fun and he makes me laugh. Yeah, and he's so demonic. Forgot about that part. The criteria that we see in culture for how to choose a spouse is, do we click? Are we attracted to that person? Those are really low bars. And not that that's not important to take care of yourself and to be attracted. Of course, you got to be attracted to the person that you're going to be dating. But this verse is saying that it's vain, it's fleeting. That girl who turns you on or that guy who makes you tingle, that person may be the worst person for you. Because the devil knows what he's doing. And he'll send you the cutest, most charming guy or girl into your life, turn you on, and then shut you down. Don't fall into the devil's trap. Also, something that you should know, gravity wins. You saw the earlier picture of me, right? Hairlines recede, crow's feet are inevitable, Botox doesn't fool anyone. And what you will be left with is character and friendship. Look for people who have the fruit of the Spirit that we find in Galatians chapter 5. And are they unconditionally loving? Or do people have to earn their love? Are they kind even to the people that they don't care for? Are they self-controlled, not given to addiction, not led by their emotions? Are they hardworking, patient, honest, trustworthy? And when they fail in these areas, are they quick to confess and apologize and make changes? Date with your eyes wide open. Look for the fruit of the Spirit. Next rule. This is wisdom rules. Wisdom rule number 2 is date with your ears open to counsel. Love is blind. Anyone see that show? I've not, because I'm a Christian. But the sentiment is true. Love is blind. It has blind spots. So rely on your trustworthy voices when you start falling for that guy or girl, and you don't, you're not necessarily going to see clearly because of the way your emotions get involved. And this is why Proverbs 11:14 says, "There's wisdom in a multitude of counsel." Let godly, trusted people into your relationship to help you see some of the areas that you may not be examining more closely. And that again, is why pre-marriage counseling is so important. But I actually prefer pre-engagement counseling. I would much rather do counseling with a couple before they're ever talking about getting married. Now I always say, hold off talking about getting married. Hold way off. Our kids start way too soon getting serious, and then their eyes are closed to the red flag. So hold off on that. I think about 2 youth pastors, both that came into my office, and I invited them both into my office, which meant that they had to come. And the first one, he'd started dating a girl, she was just crazy. She was a troubled soul. I remember saying to him, because I cared for her, really cared for that girl. I said, listen, and I said his name, I said, we care for and minister to troubled souls, but we don't marry them. He did, and wound up messing up his life, and we couldn't keep him on staff. Second youth pastor, I invited him into my office for the same reason. He was dating this crazy girl. I saw all kinds of red flags. And I I said, I started off just by saying, these are some concerns I've got for you because I have way too many friends. I have way too many friends that were the sharpest people, the sharpest guys, had the greatest ability for ministry, and wound up marrying the wrong person for the wrong reasons and are not in the ministry today because of it. So I was genuinely concerned, and I love both these guys. The second guy shared my concerns, and he thanked me, and he says, I needed to hear this because I guess I was thinking that way anyway, but I've already bought the ring. And he went away and prayed about it, broke up with the girl, and now you all know Pastor Jordan is married to Lindsay, beautiful, wonderful girl that he met here at this church. A lot of you know Pastor Jordan anyway from our Ranhurst campus. That was Jordan, that was him. 2 conversations. One person was not interested in taking the advice, and another person was. So listen, date with your ears open to counsel. Rule number 3, don't date lying down. There's more in Proverbs about this than anything else. Don't be guilty of sexual immorality. It'll blow it up for you because you can't build a relationship on the physical. And when I say sex, I think we push the line of sex to meaning just intercourse, but sexual immorality involves anything that creates arousal outside of the marriage relationship. Don't go there. That intimacy is reserved for marriage in Scripture. This is what God says, and He knows more than any of us do. And for a lot of reasons, I think. One being that sex is such a powerful bonding agent, which is great for marriage, but during dating, you're still trying to decide. And it helps you bond and it overlooks things, but again, it's great for marriage, but not for wise dating. And how can you start things off well when you're just flagrantly disobeying God and saying, forget it, God, I'm going to do what I want to do? You're just feigning the help of God in that relationship then. Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. You see, purity leads to clarity. If you want clarity in choosing a spouse, you need to choose purity. Okay, there's a lot more for us to say on this, but we got to hit marriage because I know that there's a lot of people in this room that are maybe thinking you're already married, and you're thinking, oh man, I got all those red flags. You know what? I got the wrong spouse. I need a new spouse. Hold on, you don't need a new spouse, but you may need a new marriage. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And some think the easier solution is just finding something new. No, the easier thing right now is God wants to do something new in you. So let's look at some rules for marriage now according to Proverbs. Rule number 1, be committed. Because it was never thought of anything other than this, that marriage was for a lifetime throughout Scripture. It was never thought of any other way. Proverbs 18:22 says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. See, commitment is not a drag. It's a gift from God. And Linda and I we came to this understanding even before we had gotten engaged. And we did not talk about our getting married. We talked about values and principles and things that are important to us, but we didn't talk about our getting married until we got engaged. But we both had understood that divorce was something that would never be an option for either one of us, no matter who we married. And we had talked about that. In fact, Linda and I had decided back when we were engaged that we would never use the D word. We would never threaten the D word. We would never joke about the D word. It was never something to laugh about. Oh, when I divorce you, you'll be sorry. Never anything like that. Now, there were some times when my wife said, no, when I kill you, you'll be sorry. But never divorce. In fact, her one saying is murder maybe, divorce never. So I do sleep with one eye open. But here's the thing, when we struggled the most in our early marriage, we needed that commitment. Because it was that commitment that drove us through to make sure that we figured things out because we were not going to leave. The power of marriage is in the covenant, the commitment, the staying. That's why you say the vows for better or worse. In fact, one of the most interesting studies that was done fairly recently at the University of Chicago by Linda Waite was the leader of this. It was a whole group of some pretty high academics. And they actually talked to 5,200 married persons and they gave themselves a rate and as to how they said their marriage was. And those who rated their marriage 2 or lower, they followed for the next 5 years, and they were given the same questionnaire 5 years later. Of those that rated their marriage 2 or lower, that is between 1 and 7, so they rated their marriage 2 or lower, given the same questionnaire. Some of them had divorced, and those that had divorced had rated their own personal happiness the same 5 years later, now divorced, as it was when they were in an unhappy marriage ready to be divorced. So they didn't get happier after they got married. Some stayed married. And of those who stayed married, 8 of 10 rated their marriage now, 5 years later. Remember, they had rated it 2 or less. Now, 5 years later, they stuck it out when they were unhappy. 5 years later, 8 of 10 rated their marriage 5 or above. That's 5 out of 7. And 2/3 of them reported higher levels of personal happiness than they had back when their marriage was terrible. And the researchers said the reasons for this was because of the sheer endurance of just saying, we're going to stick this out and we're going to make this work. And then they did work on the relationship because of it. And then because they also found an alternative happiness, that they stopped depending on their spouse for their happiness, which, by the way, you will never find. You'll never find happiness in your spouse. And there's real power in staying. Be committed to each other. Be committed to honoring God with your lives. In fact, that was Linda and I. We had 2 things going for us. Number 1, we believed in the permanence of marriage, and we were not even going to think about splitting up. And number 2, we were committed to honoring God with our lives, which drove us then when we found all the selfishness within us, because marriage, it just reveals all the selfishness in you. In order to please God, we knew we had to work on a lot of things, which we did. Rule number two, be committed still. Oh, I just skipped over all these slides. Sorry about that. Number 2, have sex regularly. I think, whoa, can we say that in church? And some of you are thinking, I don't think we can say that in church. Some of you are thinking, best sermon point ever. Well, this is the reason why you should never skip church, because gentlemen, go to your married friends who you've invited to church many times and they've always said no, they've refused your invites, and just show them the sermon notes, and you will get them to come. I guarantee it. So Proverbs 5:15. Actually, believe it or not, Proverbs and the Bible as a whole says a lot about this. Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. It may seem like, what are you talking about sex there? It is. You look at the context, it's very much about sex, because then verse 19, the next couple of verses says, let her breast, your wife, her breast fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Intoxicated in her love. There's a chemical in our brain called oxytocin, and it's the chemical that makes us feel attached and close to someone. And when you have sex, your oxytocin can spike by 400%. You talk about a bonding agent, meaning that sex is highly addictive, which used in marriage, that's incredible. God made it so that couples literally become addicted to their spouses. But that's also why Satan wants to do everything he can to get you to take your clothes off when you're dating, and then when you get married, he wants you to keep your clothes on. The enemy does not want you to be close to your spouse. He wants to divide you. And a sexless marriage is a great start. So Scripture is clear that a husband and wife should not deprive each other of sexual relations. That's in 1 Corinthians. It's not okay to withhold sex, to get back at each other. Sex is not a bargaining chip. It's not for manipulation. It's a sacrificial gift you give to each other. Now, I already know the question that a lot of people then ask, okay, well, what is regular? How often is regular? And believe me, I'm not going to get into that. But the number of times is going to be different for different couples in different seasons. But studies show that couples who have sex at least once a week report significantly higher relationship satisfaction than those who don't. So this comes from the Bible, but I'm just telling you, the Bible works. God knows more about us than we know about ourselves. And so let's just follow through on what he says. It's a big part of marriage, and it's important, and it should be. Rule number 3, establish appropriate boundaries with the opposite sex. Proverbs 6 and 7 is all about how to adultery-proof your marriage. Proverbs 7:25, in fact, ends with this warning. It says, don't let your heart stray away from her. Don't wander down her wayward path. Again, remember, this is written to young men. And affairs don't happen on accident. They happen as you let your heart wander from the right path. And the right path is your spouse. So how do you stay on the right path? Well, you think about this. You're on this road. You're going to stay on this road. How do you stay on? Guardrails are a big deal, especially when there's cliffs on each side. Guardrails. Your marriage needs guardrails. And let me just give you some essential guardrails that have been huge for Linda and me. And the first one, no secrets. Big deal, no secrets. I can't believe the number of couples where they've got all kinds of things hidden from each other, and separate banking accounts, and one doesn't even know what the other one has, and we're one flesh. And it's a messed up concept of marriage when marriage goes that way. We are one flesh. What's mine is hers. What's hers is mine. My phone is not my phone, it's our phone. Linda can look at my text, social media, calendar, anything that she wants. And the same goes for me. No secret contacts, no hidden plans, full access. That full access, it builds trust. In fact, she can see my location at any time on her phone, and I can see her location at any time on my phone. No secrets. Number two, this is a little bit more controversial, but I really believe this: no guy-girl friendships. Now, listen, I don't have any close girl friendships. I have female coworkers and friends, people that I respect, where I'm friends with both the husband and wife, and Linda and I are both friends with both, but I don't have any female friends that I hang out with. I'm just not going to do that. My hangout friends are guys. Friday night, I'm not going to leave Linda to go hang out with Samantha. That'd be a recipe for disaster. I may go hang out with Sam, but he's a guy. And I delete no text strings, and I have none that I wouldn't want Linda to see. Now, is that true for you? If not, if you're hiding some text strings, or you got to delete some, or you're hiding some things on your phone, or you're password protected and she or he doesn't have your password, and I guarantee you've got a friendship that's crossed the line that you're trying to keep. Number three, don't criticize your spouse to the opposite sex. This is a study I read years ago, and it was the interesting thing about this study, because it was couples within churches. So these are people that profess to be Christians. Some of them had been in ministry or were in ministry full-time at the time when it took place. But all of these people were in churches who had affairs, and he studied to see what happened. And here's the thing. There's a lot of things that had happened, but the one thing I took out of this is that in every single case, there was not one single affair where it didn't begin with the one criticizing his or her spouse to the other. That's where it started. My husband doesn't talk to me, or my wife doesn't listen, or my husband doesn't make time for us. When you begin that, you are opening the door for the other person to meet that desire. And so after reading that, and I don't think I ever had before that, but it's just my mind is made up. I have never said anything negative about Linda to another woman, any other woman, and I'm just not going to. Don't criticize your spouse. In fact, I would say don't criticize your spouse to anybody. You do that on a girls' night out or guys getting out. That's not healthy either. That's not going to do anything for your marriage either. Rule number 4, encourage more than you criticize. God uses our marriage to help refine us and challenge us. I get that, and we should be challenging each other. Your marriage does need some healthy confrontation and challenge. You don't want to be a coward either, but if that is what defines your marriage, you're miserable. You should be your husband or your wife's biggest cheerleader and encourager, not their best critic. I hear that a lot. Oh, my wife is my best critic. That's not a good thing. You should be the cheerleader that he or she needs, and they do need it. Proverbs warns of this over and over. Proverbs 14:1, a wise woman builds her home, but a foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. Proverbs 21:19, it's better to live alone in the desert than with a quarrelsome, complaining wife. And I promise you, I've never quoted that to my wife. I never have. I really haven't. Or here's then Proverbs 19:13. A quarrelsome wife is as annoying as a constant dripping. He's very picturesque about this. And the problem with Solomon is he had way too many wives, and so I'm sure he had experienced it on a few occasions. But there's enough people in this world that's beating your spouse up. Your husband, your wife, they're getting beat up enough. The enemy is at work beating him or her up. Be a voice that is different. Be an encouraging voice that calls out the good in him, in her. When was the last time you told your wife that she's a wonderful mom? When's the last time that you thanked your husband for providing? When was the last time that you genuinely looked at your spouse and said, man, you're a good man. You're a good woman. Here's a dangerous question to ask your spouse after this message. I dare you. Ask your husband, your wife, do I encourage you more than I criticize you? It's in our sin nature that causes us to want to be a critic. but it's in the kind of love that God's called us to in our marriages that brings out the encouragement. Number 5, prioritize your friendship. Proverbs 5:18 says, rejoice in the wife of your youth. And it might be hard to remember, but there was a time when the two of you liked each other. You remember that? There was a time when you would get a call from him or her, you'd see a text from them, and you were giddy. Or you'd go on the date and have fun, and then girls, you'd call up your girlfriends, oh, he's so cute. Oh, my word, we had the best time. Or guys, you'd go to the boys, you'd say, bro, man, I think she may be the one. There was a time when you loved being together, but then life happened. Routines, kids, they are romance suckers, I know it. And your friend becomes a roommate. Years ago, when our kids were young, we saw the drift, and we made up our minds to build a friendship between us that would outlast our kids living at home. And today, our kids, they've been gone for a long time. They've been on our own for a long time. And I would rather hang out with Linda than with anyone in the world. It wasn't a tough transition for us. It wasn't like so many where the kids are gone, now what do we have to talk about? No, we had plenty to talk about because we had each other. We had a friendship. But we recognized that for that to happen, it had to start when the kids were little. And we couldn't have a child-centered family where everything was about their activities. We had to prioritize our friendship. And we needed to have fun together, sometimes without them. Now, here's a simple task list that'll help you do this. This is for all our married couples in here. It's a big deal. This will really help you. Number 1, talk for 15 minutes daily. Phones down, TV off, kids in bed. Look at each other and ask, how was your day? And listen. You go into a restaurant, leave your phones in the car. Just leave them in the car. It's amazing what 15 intentional minutes will do for your connection if you do it daily. And secondly, we go on a date weekly. And I don't care if it's fancy sushi or McDonald's in the car while the kids are at soccer, but the point is you can carve out space for each other. Linda and I, we had very little money when our kids were little. We'd walk around the park. That was our date night. For us, was every other Friday night was date night, and every other Friday night was family night. And I assigned this to a counselor years ago, and they told me, they couldn't afford it. So I suggested a bunch of inexpensive dates because we had done a lot of that. And they said, no, the babysitters, they want $20 an hour just to watch TV and eat our popcorn while the kids are sleeping. I said, pay it. $20 an hour, that'd be cheap compared to a divorce lawyer. Pay it. Date. It'll change everything for you. And if every week seems too much, then do what Linda and I did. Make it every other week. But do this, have it on a weekly calendar. In fact, Friday night is still a big date night for us. And then go on vacation alone, just the two of you, annually. Oh man, our kids hated that. And we didn't care, or I didn't care. I would say, listen, I had your mom before you, and someday you're going to be gone, but mom and I are still going to be in the house, so we're going to do this. We started this when our first was only a year old. Scotty Jr. was just a year old. We got away from it for a few years, but we returned to doing this, to leave the kids for overnighters, sometimes a couple of days, sometimes a whole week. And Linda will admit, she never really wanted to go when it was time to actually go, but once we were away, it was just so refreshing to just enjoy each other. If you don't prioritize your marriage, life will gladly squeeze it out. So invest into it. All right, last rule, forgive. Forgive. Proverbs 17:9 says, love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. And I know we talked about this last week when we talked about anger, so I don't want to dwell on it, but it has to be repeated because I really think this is one of the major things that's getting in the way of marriages being restored. Because more than anything, and I bet a lot of the unhealthy marriages in this room are unhealthy because this isn't happening. Pastor Jordan from our Randhurst campus told me that his wife's favorite marriage quote is, and so I quote her at it. Somebody take a picture of this and send it to her because she doesn't know what's going on. But I love this. Marriage is not happily ever after. It's forgiveness ever after. That's good. And that's true because it will not be happily ever after if you're not forgiving ever after. And now, she's married to Jordan, so I'm sure she gets a lot of practice at it. But this is really true. The health of your marriage will be determined by the level of forgiveness you show each other. Because at the end of the day, you can do all these things that we're talking about, and yet you'll still go to bed next to a sinner. And your spouse will be next to a sinner as well. And when you refuse to forgive, you're refusing the blessing of marriage. And this list I just gave you can actually make it harder for you to forgive now because, that's been a part of my fear for this whole thing is my fears. I'm adding ammunition to some of your discouragement and bitterness because you look at these points and you're thinking, man, I hope he's listening. I hope this is recorded because my wife needs to hear this. Some of you are already hopeless and you're thinking, zero chance your spouse does any of this. And if that's you, man, you're already lost in this. Because this can't be about changing your spouse. This has to be about you changing you. That's why the marriage seminar that Linda and I teach is called Improve Your Marriage by Yourself, because it's the only way you can improve your marriage. You have to forget about trying to get your spouse to change and instead just look in the mirror. Go to God to fulfill your needs. Have Him fill you up and then pour out your unconditional love to your spouse. And when you approach marriage that way, it starts to be what God intended, a good thing. Because he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. That's what marriage is supposed to be, a good thing. God gave us marriage not as a burden, but as a blessing. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because I look out in the world and I see so many people have this so wrong. Now, please understand, I love my job. I feel like I'm living my dream with this job that I have. I love our people, the congregation that we have that inspire me. I love our staff, our elders. I look forward to going to work. But at the end of the day, I can never wait to get home. Because I just love my wife and I love being with her. I love the good thing that I have in my marriage, and I want that for you. Yes, dating is confusing, and marriage is hard. But God's wisdom makes it not only possible, but enjoyable. God can help you, I promise. He wants to help you. He wants to help you find the right spouse for those of you that are single and be the right spouse for those of you who are married. He wants to help you find peace and enjoyment in your marriage, but not apart from Him. He needs to be involved in every step because only He can fill your deepest needs. Only He can teach you to forgive the unforgivable. Only He can help you love someone on the days when you don't really like them. So the challenge in Proverbs is laid out simply. If you're single, date with your eyes wide open and open your heart anchored to Christ. And if you're married, commit again today to do things God's way. Stay in it. Invest in it. Cheer each other on. Protect your friendship. Have fun and forgive fast. And let's make our marriages the pictures of Christ's love for us as He intends for them to be. And so what? Well, how does God want you to change your thinking about dating for those of you who would be in that stage? About marriage? In fact, what's the one thing that you need to do this week to start living the things out that we've been talking about? In your dating life or in your marriage? And for some, maybe it means ending an unhealthy dating relationship. It just didn't start off well and it's not the way it should be. And for others, maybe it's asking some trusted people for counsel. For some of you marrieds, it's just deciding, okay, I'm going to do this. We're going to plan the date night, and we're going to be religious about it. For others, it's freeing your heart from bitterness that's holding you back from being able to enjoy what God's given you. So whatever it is, what's your one next step to move you closer to the marriage and the life that God wants for you? So, Father, thank you for speaking to us. And I know for a lot of us, this is really applicable and really practical. There are others here that are not thinking that this is even for them at all. And I pray that you'd help us to make application for all of us, whether it's being advisors to some or just even these general biblical principles that we can put to use in life. But I pray for those singles here that are looking to date or possibly dating. I pray that you'd give them your wisdom, that they would first and foremost be absolutely committed to you. and looking for the right things. And that you would give them guidance through the filling of your Holy Spirit. And for all of the marrieds who are here, Father, I pray in a very special way that again, through your Holy Spirit breaking through, that every one of us would take this personally. And may we apply principles from this book of wisdom that will enable us to be able to enjoy the marriage you've given to us in a way that we perhaps haven't even dreamed. In Jesus' name, amen.